Alright, welcome back to the rest of the story. And here's a little teaser of Ryan pulling the New Holland hay rake up in the shed to work on it. This is not what this video is about, but I just wanted to point out to everybody that has said that have used gators and trucks and cars, wherever else, to rake hay before. We have never actually raked with anything other than a tractor, but just so you know that it was pretty common even back when we had my grandpa's rake. We would use the four-wheelers and everything else to move stuff around. I mean, not just the rake. Anything we could hook up to the four-wheeler or the gator, we always did, and we still do. Probably just doesn't end up online as much, but it does happen. And I sped this part up. I'm just changing the oil out in the 4640. It's kind of dull, but it's oil change, and I've been saying for a week now that I was going to start dropping oil out of these tractors, and I dropped the oil out the night before on this and the 4020. And my problem is every day that I say, all right, I'm going to go and do X, Y, and Z, something comes up and our attention gets diverted somewhere else, largely either between cows or grinding feed or going getting parts, which luckily we haven't really had to worry about getting too many parts. Still haven't gotten the parts for that New Holland rake, but Ryan went ahead and pulled all the teeth off of it, so it's ready to go back together. And he did put the other tire on the front. So a quick rundown of everything that I do in the spring, typically for the tractors, because I was just asked here just recently what we all do. And typically from the top, not necessarily in order, is of course we always change the engine in the spring. We go engine oil, engine filters, fuel filters, cab and engine air filters, and then we like to clean the cab out. I try to armor all the plastic in the cab, and then when we get closer to actually field work, I like to go ahead and wash the machine off. I mean, it's a dirt floor shop, or dirt floor shed, so our equipment, as people have noted about Ryan's truck, it gets dusty, and we leave the shed door open throughout the day, and the wind blows up and it stirs dust up through there, plus the birds are flying all over the place. Should have shut my phone off. But that's a pretty standard list of things that we do every year for all of our equipment. And I do go through, I haven't done it yet to the 46, I got to go through and check the batteries, clean the terminals, clean the battery cables, and check for water in the batteries, which they're brand new last spring. So as far as water in them, it really shouldn't need too much. We do run a lot of electronics, it seems, or a lot of additional displays in our machinery anymore, between the planter monitors and the controllers and the sprayer or the applicator controller for the planter on the 46 to everything on the 7600. I mean, I was just talking to an individual about the 8230, about the fact that it does sit so much. I mean, it's an expensive tractor to just have around for a few weeks out of the year, but let's face it, that tractor allows us to get our spring planting and our harvest done in the fall a lot more efficiently than just relying on the 46 and the 7600. How often do we change the oil in our tractors? That is a moving number. I always go through, regardless of how many hours we put it on the previous year, I always change the oil in the spring because it's a new year, new challenges, and you don't know what the weather and the season will throw at you. I just like starting every year with fresh oil, and I typically go through, I'll do hydraulic oil filters like in the 82 and the 46 like every other year. 76 is pretty well every year. 4020, that is due for another one here. But it's a moving number. We average probably right around that 300 hours pretty consistently on the 82. The 46 maybe a little bit more, a little over 300, just because we use it for hay. I know some guys that change their engine oil every 100 hours. I myself think that's a little excessive. I mean, even back when Grandpa was here, we went and we changed them in the spring and in the fall. It wasn't by the hours, it was by the date in the calendar. But we also had 8 different tractors to disperse the work out of, so they weren't getting an awful amount of hours at a time. The 7600, that is the one example here where I do, if all things considered, I do go ahead and I actually change the oil before fall harvest, just because the 76 is getting a lot of work thrown at it. I mean, the tractor is going to hit 10,000 hours sooner than later, and granted, I'm not exactly crazy about that fact, but it can't be helped. The tractor is my go-to. It is my favorite tractor, and it needs a friend, in my opinion. And I don't know how many years, months, well, it's definitely not months, how many years down the road before I can get something to take up some of that slack for the 76, but it's on my mind. But last year I put a little over 600 hours in the 76, and I changed the oil in the spring. It didn't really do anything major for spring planting, but it did. I went through and pulled the harrow across all of our new seeding ground, plus all of our soybean planted grounds. I smoothed it all back out. It's a runner around where if we need to move equipment between the farms, the 76 is usually the one that does it. And at 600 hours, I think it was like 600 hours before harvest by like September of last year, because making hay and cutting brush, and I'm not going to sit and list off everything that tractor did, but you guys have a pretty good idea. And going into harvest where the 76 gets used that much more between hauling grain and cutting fodder with the rhino cutter, plus round baling, plus raking, the hours really added up through fall harvest, and then it got changed again in December there. So I definitely have the mindset where I don't leave the engine oil to run for ever and ever, but 500 hours is usually my ceiling. That if I see it's getting close to about 500 hours, I will say, all right, we need to go ahead and change the oil. I didn't change the fuel filter. I typically do fuel and engine spring in the fall, but when I changed it in the summer like that, I just did the engine oil just to freshen it back up. And the 4640 and the 82 and even the 4020 anymore, we're getting to where we only change them in the spring for the amount of work that they're getting. You can make the argument I should use the 46 and the 4020 more, take the hours off the 76, but with that front wheel assist, mechanical front wheel drive, that tractor, in my opinion, is the equivalent of the 46 and the 42. You can just get around so much better without having to worry about chains. And I mean, I went and, I hate to say it, but I went mud bogging with the 76 yesterday, and other than sliding to the side by about a foot, the tractor took it like a champ. And I know dang well I would have buried the front end of the 4020, 46 of sure, just because it's heavier, and those narrow front tires just don't float, especially when they can't dig. So that is the oil changing video on the 46. There is no cold starting of it, just because it was like 8 o'clock and dark out and I had to get home. I didn't have a chance to run it, but I will be starting it here probably today and probably move on to the 4020. It's mid-March, but I'm definitely in the mindset need to start getting equipment ready to go. And with that, take care, take it easy, keep in touch. I will talk to you guys later.